Morning everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to our next training video, which is in Luke chapter 14 verses 25 to 35. And just like to encourage you, please read the passage beforehand and pray and consider it and ask God the Holy Spirit to be your teacher. But also as we get to this video, keep the Bible passage open as we go along. But let's get going. And of course, I think actually the meaning of the passage is quite clear. It's about the cost of discipleship. And you see a sort of pattern there. When 3 times Jesus calls people, and it's directed towards a large crowd. So it's not his inner circle of disciples, as in Luke 9:23. This is for the large crowd. And he mentions to them, if anyone comes to me, he gives 3 areas which they need to basically give up or not prioritize in order to follow him. And the repeated phrase that shows us these are 3 different things is that cannot be my disciple, cannot be my disciple, cannot be my disciple. And the areas he highlights in this passage, as you read it, of course, is relationships. That's verse 26. Our lives, suffering, verse 27, which is that cross language. And then, of course, possessions. Who's not willing to give up everything? That's verse 33. But this is not the first time Jesus makes this call. It's built on Luke 9:23. If anyone would come after me, he says, he must deny himself, take up his cross, is the cross language, daily, and follow me. And it's important to see that the claims or the demands Jesus makes in Luke 14 is not actually new. It's really a summary of what he's already said. So, for example, if you backtrack and you read again Luke's gospel from where we started, Jesus already told people that following him would claim their relationships. He says, for example, just an example in Luke 9:59 to 62, when Jesus called someone to follow him, he said, still another said, I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go back and say goodbye to my family. And notice what Jesus replies. He said, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit. Think about that salt analogy, is fit for the service in the kingdom of God. Similarly, in Luke 12:51 to 52, he says, do you think I came to bring peace on earth? No, I tell you, but division. From now on, there will be 5 in one family divided against each other. And Jesus is already pointing that following him will change your allegiance. It won't be your most intimate relationships anymore, human relationships. The most important relationship in your life will be Jesus's, being with him. And of course, that would claim everything. And it would cause division in your families if they're not followers of Christ. And so we have to be willing to put our relationships on the altar for Jesus. But he also highlighted lives. Our lives are at stake. We will suffer for him. I mean, in Luke 10:3, which we've done before, when he sends out his disciples to witness, notice how he puts it, I'm sending you out as lambs among wolves. That's not a nice picture. Also, he says, I tell you, my friends, in Luke 12:4, he tells his disciples that do not be afraid of those who kill the body, and after that can do no more. He's already prepared them and says, listen, following me will claim your life. You will suffer. So it's actually verse 26 and 27. I mean, Jesus has been unpacking this the whole time. But then possessions as well. Give up everything. That's not new. I mean, look at all these passages. Jesus already taught his disciples that they should be dependent on their Father for everything. Give us each day our daily bread. He already warned them against greed, which is the love of possessions or wealth. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. That's Luke 12:15. And I mean, notice this radical claim, Luke 12:33 to 34, when he says, sell your possessions, give to the poor, provide purses for yourselves that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will not be exhausted, where no thief goes near, and no moth destroys, actually. And here's the catch, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. He's already warned them. You cannot pursue possessions. It can't be your life aim. So when Jesus says you must be willing to give up everything, that's not a new thing that he's saying. This passage is actually a summary of almost everything he said about following him. And as he's mentioned, if you're not fully there, as he closes in verses 34 to 35, then you're like worthless salt that got spoiled. Half-heartedness doesn't work. A half commitment to Jesus doesn't work. It's all or nothing. That's the cost. And if you're not willing to, as he says, it'll be like worthless salt. You'll just be cast out. That language of being cast out again, which we see in Luke 13 and the beginning of verse 14 with the invites. But you need to remember, Luke's gospel was written so that you would read it from cover to cover. This seems very extreme of Jesus. But then, as you read on, you need to remember that when Jesus made the first claim to follow him, he actually prefaced it in Luke 9:22 that the fact is he's going to suffer this. He says, the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by elders, chief priests, and teachers of the law, and he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Think about it. His sacrifice claimed all his relationships, everything he had, his very life. And when you get to the end of Luke's gospel, when you read it, you feel the weight of it. For example, Luke 22, we see Jesus actually in one chapter lose all his relationships. Judas went to the chief priest, for example, and officers of the temple guard and discussed how he might betray Jesus. Peter, for example, before the cock crows today, you will disown me 3 times. He did it. Peter, one of his most intimate friends, rejected him or disowned him at that moment to save his own skin. And Judas betrayed him for money. But Jesus lost everything. At the end of Jesus' journey, we actually see he has nothing left. They divided up his clothes by casting lots. He was literally naked on a cross. And then Luke 23:26-49, Jesus lost his life. Jesus called out with a loud voice, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. And when he had said this, he breathed his last. Jesus does not call us to something he himself did not do. And more than that, he did all this for us. That alone should motivate total discipleship or total commitment in following Jesus. And really, that's what you want your people to walk away with, is A, understand the cost of discipleship. It's going to cost you everything. But understand Jesus' sacrifice for us. It cost him everything. But then, of course, understand the cost of not following Jesus. We will be cast out like worthless salt. And that, I would say, is what this passage is about in Luke 14, verses 25 to 34.